So you don't remember anything about what we're about to go into?
No, I don't even remember how, like, what happens between the last episode ending and this episode starting. It's like, okay, like we're gonna see when we start, but like I have no clue what is going on.
Good. So it'll be a surprise for both of us.
Yeah, it'll be like, I never played it at all.
All right, well, let's see what happens.
Well, as you can see, I think, entered to the north.
Goldwood
but we
Gateway.
but we arrived from the east. I don't know.
Yeah, that's strange.
What's up? What happened there? You see, I don't remember if like that transition was correct, or maybe I cut something. I don't think that's the case, but it's just weird. It's just weird. We were going up last episode, and now we started going left.
Yeah.
But whatever. We have a fawn.
Well, he's called a Mimic. He's one of those guys
old Mimic.
He was one of those guys that was mentioned at the end of last episode.
Okay, you've been paying more attention than I have.
Well, that's the problem when you're skipping through all the text here. You're not.
Well, yeah. So his race doesn't. I don't think plays a major role in the story.
Well,
so it's fine. This is just an old guy.
Just an old guy. Yeah, he's some old guy. Who cares?
And then it turns out he's like the secret boss. Remember this. Remember his patterns. Make sure you have these specific party members and weapons.
We got turned again, so I'm gonna presume that the transition was okay.
Okay.
Because we just went north and then came out the east side there.
All right, I was adjusting my headphones, so it's like I blanked out for a few seconds. I'll take your word for it.
Also, this Mimic is hostile, so
I guess they're like the lizard man.
Well,
I think they're called the Sare.
Well, why was the old guy friendly to Papel then? That don't make no sense. Well, it probably makes sense.
Because I think it's because Papel hangs around the forest quite a lot, and she regularly visits him.
And just like the young ones that don't like humans or something.
I guess not.
Because look,
I don't know why they're attacking us.
Oh, he called us a pig too.
Okay, yeah, I'm starting to refamiliarize with these guys. Yeah, they have one of their stances. So the stances aren't necessarily like their movement, but it's like sometimes they're treated like status effects.
Yeah.
And this game does have status effects, but like we saw it earlier. Where we just saw it just now. It's when they went berserk. It's kind of like the can't remember what the status effect is called, but it's the one where you can't use skills and you can only physically attack in Persona.
Berserk?
Is it called Berserk?
I don't know about Persona specifically, but
no, Persona has a status effect where it doubles your physical damage.
Yeah,
but,
it's
you can only attack and you can't use spells.
It is a berserk type effect. That's
okay.
That's what it's based on. Regardless of like.
Is that the normal? Is that the generic name for the status effect?
Yeah, because like in the really quite poor original translation for Final Fantasy VII, there's a status effect that does basically the same exact thing. It's slightly different, but
and I haven't played FF7.
They call it Fury.
Okay.
which is just
I mean,
it's funny.
It's applicable.
But yeah, like
I wouldn't say that's the best word for it.
I'm trying to like there's a specific game that I'm trying to remember that does like literally does that and calls it Berserk, but I can't. It's like right on the tip of my tongue.
Speaking of FF7, do you think they scrapped everything they had so far?
For the remake?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like the stories I've seen about it suggest that they were initially trying to outsource it to a different studio entirely. And then discovered
well, it wasn't Square Enix internally.
Yeah.
It was a dedicated developer. I think it's called CyberConnect 2.
Yeah.
And CyberConnect 2 does a lot of outsourcing.
Yeah. Well, they were trying to outsource it to a different developer, and then discovered that the development wasn't going along to the standard that they wanted, so they were like, nah, just let us do it. And
Yeah.
so they took it back, and that was only like a couple months ago.
But the game was revealed 3.5 years ago, and aside from that,
well, like 3 years ago.
3 years ago. But since then, that's still a long time for not to have revealed anything.
I'm willing to bet that they haven't had a lot of significant work to scrap anyway at this point.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna. Well, they're probably gonna scrap some things. But I don't think they completely just like started from a fresh slate.
Well, because the thing is, like, it was revealed earlier than it should have been, because all of the people who could have potentially worked on it were working on a number of other projects already anyway. So.
I think there was a major guy who like didn't know he was working on it until it was revealed on stage.
I'm not sure about the accuracy of that story, but yeah, the rumor of it was that Tetsuya Nomura didn't know that he was like attached to the Final Fantasy VII remake project, and then saw his name show up in the reveal trailer. Which, if it's true, that would be hilarious. But yeah. I'm not sure that story is true.
I'd want it to be true. Wait, I'm working on this? Okay.
I guess. Alright, thanks for letting me know, guys. Huh.
Is Nomura the guy who does the belts and zippers?
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
He did do he was responsible for a lot of the monster designs in the original Final Fantasy VII. I don't think he did the character designs for the actual like player characters, but he was one of the main people who designed a lot of the monsters.
All right, it's definitely it might have been him, but there's definitely someone who was like responsible for I mean, hey, check out these JRPG characters, and it's just belts everywhere.
He's the main guy behind Kingdom Hearts.
Okay, maybe that's what I was thinking of.
And he was also the character designer for Final Fantasy X. So that game infamously has Titus and Lulu, who are both very, very belt and zipper heavy.
Okay. I'm getting mixed up with Lulu and whatever her name is.
Yuna?
The summoner girl.
Yuna?
What's her name? Yuna. Yeah.
Yeah, Lulu's the goth chick.
Yeah, okay. Well, what's the other girl's name?
Riku?
The one played by Tara Strong. Yeah, Riku. Fuck. Yeah, Riku has a lot of belts on her as well.
What's that? You haven't played Final Fantasy games?
I said in the previous episode all I've played is 3. And that I meant FF3. Not 3 FF games. And also the Bravely games.
Bravely Default.
I played all of Bravely Default, and I think I'm like a quarter of the way through Bravely Second. That was a mistake because I started Bravely Second immediately after Bravely Default, and I was burnt out.
Oh, I can imagine.
Especially, aside from the fact that they're JRPGs, but also how Bravely Default's story is structured.
Yeah.
In that, like, the second half of the game is complete crap.
Well, I haven't gotten quite that far yet, but I've heard the people.
Maybe you haven't realized it.
No, I've heard the people get annoyed by it, but I'm like, I mean, I would still say I'm fairly close to the beginning of the game. I don't know. I think I'm like somewhere around 10 hours in.
Okay.
But
yeah, the story and characters were pretty good, at least in like the first half, and then the shenanigans starts happening, and it's just awful.
Yeah, I haven't heard any equivalent complaints about Bravely Second.
Bravely Second so far, well, yeah, neither have I, so I assume the same level of shenanigans doesn't happen in that game. But it does one thing at the beginning of the game which I really like, that definitely I prefer over Bravely Default. The problem with the ending of Bravely Default, like the last, I'm gonna say for like 5%, which is better than 50% through 95% of the way, in that it introduces the big bad guy so late into the game.
I mean,
and in Bravely Second, literally the first 3 seconds of the game, okay, here is the final boss, basically.
I'm not gonna excuse it, but I will say that contextually that makes an amount of sense, because that happens in the vast majority of Final Fantasy games.
Yeah, well, that is something I don't really like, is that if you want me to really care about the final bad guy, then don't introduce them like 90% of the way through the game. Like, at least develop them, rather than just have them be just a dark force that is looming and only really does something by the time you fight it.
Yeah, it's like,
yeah, that was the exact case of FF3, which was basically proto Bravely Default in that,
and
it has a big cloud of darkness, which is what it was called, and you don't know it existed until like way late into the game.
it's also the central problem that people have with the ending of Final Fantasy IX is that the final boss is just completely comes out of nowhere.
I haven't played FF9 obviously, but you're not talking about the guy who's like, the midriff bearing outfit guy.
No.
Whatever his name is. Oh, he's not the final boss.
No.
Oh, that's a shame.
And that's, well, I mean, this is why it's difficult to talk about it, because like he is the final boss. He's just not the final boss that you fight. Like, because he's the final boss of the game. It just so happens that there's another boss fight after you beat him.
Okay. And it's not a different like phase.
No, it's a different character.
It's completely different character.
Yeah, it's a different character, and it doesn't make sense. But it's like it's so minor and inconsequential to the plot that you could effectively ignore that he even showed up if you want. Like, it doesn't make a difference.
Was that the case with FF10? Like, is Jack the final boss?
10 is weird because
I've watched a playthrough of 10, and I can think of 3 bosses that I'm confused in the order you fight them in.
10's...
No, actually 4. Make that 4.
10's sequence of final bosses is really weird because it does a very similar thing where like the final bosses themselves are like they come out of nowhere and they're not necessarily needed as the characters that they are, because it's not Jecht.
It's not Jecht, and it's not Seymour.
No.
And it's not Sin.
It is.
It is Sin.
Sort of. Which also sort of means that it's Jecht. It's like the final boss. The final boss of.
What's the name?
Well,
is it Yu Yevon?
Yes, and that's the thing is like the final boss.
I don't remember a single thing about Yu Yevon.
The final boss of Final Fantasy X ends up being the corrupting force that created Sin in the first place. Basically, sort of.
Okay, is it an actual boss battle or is it like the very ending of Persona 3 where it's just like a black orb?
You have two like proper boss battles, and then you have like the final boss battle that's basically impossible to lose.
Okay, if it's impossible to lose, then I don't really count that as a boss battle.
Yeah, but there are two proper boss battles like right before it, or something like that.
And it's not Seymour or Jecht.
No. I think one of them might be a form of Jecht, but you know.
I just remember the Jecht boss battle. It's like the music is like really different from like the rest of the game. It's like hard rock.
Well, they have the in the opening cutscene of the game where Titus is doing his whole blitzball thing in the CGI cutscene. Like they have that really weird and not fitting at all like butt death metal song.
Wait, during the cutscene?
Yeah, like I
don't remember that.
In the opening cutscene of the game, they have like this really just out of place butt death metal song.
Awesome.
Because it's not butt rock, but like it's
butt metal.
It's way heavier than butt rock, but it's not like heavy enough and good enough to be actual death metal.
It's probably a Japanese band doing it.
I don't even remember, but it's not great. Like as someone who is generally fond of, you know, heavier metal bands, it's not great.
As someone who doesn't play Final Fantasy, I'm gonna rank FF10 as one of the better ones.
I mean, I think they're all pretty good, really, except for
even 2.
I enjoyed 2, yeah. Well, all right. So I will clarify that like my only experience with the older Final Fantasy games is through their newer remakes. So like I've only played Final Fantasy 1 and 2 through the PSP versions, which I think are pretty good. Like they're very simplistic as far as RPGs go, which is understandable. But yeah, I thought they were very enjoyable, and like I would rate them at the lower end of Final Fantasy games, but they were fine. I liked 3 and 4 a lot more.
I'm trying to think. Is it just 1 and 2? Well, 1 more 2 as like being universally the like labeled as, you know, one of the worst ones?
No, not really. There isn't really any like one Final Fantasy game that, like main series game, that people overwhelmingly agree is bad.
That's probably why they restarted their remake of FF7. Like, it has to be good.
The closest The closest ones are Final Fantasy X-2 and the Final Fantasy 13 games.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Those,
Forgot about those.
those are the main ones that people are split on, and even for both of those, you have tons of people who are like, those games are fine. Mm-hmm. So, like...
And the problems I've heard of FF13, like, that's made me not want to play it, because, like, the problem... It has, like, such a major problem with, like, its linearity, and then it only really branches off at, like 40 hours in or something.
My stance on the game, has always been that I think it's a fine game in itself, but I don't think it's a very good Final Fantasy game. Which, you know, if you don't have a lot of experience with Final Fantasy specifically anyway, you're probably not going to hate 13.
Well, why is it a bad Final Fantasy game? Because, like, if we were to compare all the main series ones, they're all, like, pretty different.
They are, but there are still a lot of similarities that go between them. And, like, the central difference is, like, the closest comparisons that there are between two Final Fantasy games, like 13 to another Final Fantasy game, would be with Final Fantasy X. And the biggest difference between Final Fantasy X and Final Fantasy 13 is that 10, while it has the same relative level of linearity that 13 does, it still does way more to obfuscate that and to build a more, like, you know, quote unquote realistic kind of world to experience. Because the main thing about Final Fantasy 13 is that it's linear, yes, but that's not the biggest problem with how linear it is the fact that linearity is compounded with a complete lack of any sort of, like, world interaction. Because, like, in Final Fantasy X, pretty much right at the start, you know, you're in Xanarkand, which is this big city. You meet all these people who are, like, fans of Tidus and Blitzball fans and blah, blah, blah. You get attacked by Sin. You're running down fairly linear hallway. You know, you get sucked into a big dimensional portal. You come out in Spira, I think is the name of the world.
I think so.
And then you get, you know, you swim around a little bit in this little ruined area that you're in. You get found by Riku, and you end up washing up on Besaid, which is a town. This is critical because in Final Fantasy 13, there aren't really any towns.
There's no downtime.
You don't interact with other people in the game world. You have, like, all of the interaction with, like, between the player characters and other NPCs happens entirely in cutscenes.
Speaking of, like, just NPCs running around, we've hit a village right now.
Yes, called Kara.
Yeah, this is world building, folks.
Also, we have
town.
another one of these little weight anchor things.
Yeah, okay. They're going to be obvious what they are
Later.
At some point, yeah. So we found Papel's
family.
Mother. Yeah, family. I don't know if that's her dad.
A man in white.
But basically, yeah, she goes out quite a lot, and her mother worries.
They've had a bad influence on her.
Maybe. Well, it is a village. Like, there's not much to do here. No, I don't think that's her dad.
No, he's
His
just
name is
Hunter.
just Hunter. Or maybe that's his actual name, Hunter.
I mean, there are people named that, so...
Yeah. People can get weird with their naming the babies. Why is it always Americans?
No, but apparently he is the accomplice of Papel's brother, so I don't think that they're related.
Brother. Well, he mentioned a name, Nuo.
Yeah.
I don't think that's her brother.
It's the same name that her mother mentioned, at least.
Well, we're gonna meet with Nuo, actually. And then, yeah, more world building. You gotta talk to NPCs. I mean, they might be repeating the same dialogue over and over again, but still something.
Yeah, and like, just to momentarily go back, like, this whole thing that we're doing right now is just completely absent from Final Fantasy 13, and
that's a shame.
And it's like the only Final Fantasy game in which that happens as well. It's like
even FF 2 and 3, 13 2 and 3.
13.2 is a little bit better. It did add in like hubs where there are other characters.
Oh, here's the glitch.
Whoa!
I mentioned a glitch to Dave. There's a chair that lets you like just phase through everything.
What is that overlay?
That's like you dreaming. Like you're supposed to be like daydreaming while you're sitting on the chair. But I guess it like gives you out of body experiences instead.
Jeez, that's.
And look at this.
Oh boy.
This is the biggest glitch in the game. It's not just aesthetically, which is most of them. This is like almost game breaking.
Yeah, we're going through all these items now.
Yeah, going through people as well.
I don't think we're supposed to be able to do that.
No. But don't worry, you can cancel it out once you go back to the share.
Wow.
So weird.
Well, we finally have a shop.
Well, at least the first one I interacted with. Yeah, that's another thing. Like,
we have a lot of money.
Yeah, I've stated that I'm really stingy with money in JRPGs.
So you're not going to buy anything.
Well, why buy items when I can just find them?
This is why you like Dark Souls, isn't it? Because you don't have to buy any weapons.
Well, aside from like completion's sake, then yeah, that's right. I mean, like, unless an item is like a unique item of some sort, or it's not just like status bonuses, which is, you know, what armor tends to be, or even what weapons tend to be also.
Oh god!
Oh yeah, I fast forward this footage. We're gonna get like me just traveling around the world this way. Yeah. So if the weapon or armor or whatever gives me like unique properties, usually in the form of like a different moveset or like spell, then I will buy it. But if it doesn't do that, then I don't really. It's less incentive for me to do that to buy it.
How far are we gonna go like this?
As far as I can.
Oh god.
I'm just gonna say I was watching the limitations of this glitch.
Oh. Just
keep
going.
There are no limitations. I don't think I can actually progress through the story this way though.
Well, can you interact with any like NPCs like this?
I don't think I can actually. Not even enemies.
Yeah.
But they follow me around though. I can still take items, so that's what I'm doing.
What are all these little like fox ghosts?
iSequence broke, so.
Oh. Well,
we're not gonna get an answer now.
Well, we got experience for it though.
Yeah, just by talking. Yeah, there are some like things that you interact with it, you learn a bit of lore and then you get XP, which is nice.
Huh. Oh, geez. We're in combat.
So I'm clearly not supposed to be here.
Well, you beat him.
Yeah.
You let Papel die again, though.
That's fine. I was planning on just reloading the save file. Like, whatever is happening since I started the glitch, then it is non-canon. None of it is happening.
Just forget about all of that.
Yeah, I forgot whether I left that part in or not. I just wanted to show, you know, if Joshua Missile, who is the developer, is watching this, then he'll know. That was one crazy dream.
So, yeah, now that we're back from the alternate universe in which we flew through the world, let's continue to not heal Papel. I guess.
I think at this point in time, I was like, there's got to be some sort of lodging.
An inn.
You know. A free one. Because if it's not free, I'm not paying.
Jeez,
you know?
Man. They only cost like 50 gold.
Still, I'm...
As it turns out, there won't be an inn, will there?
Don't worry. There's not an inn, but there's still a way to rest.
Hello again,
I think
Papel.
I think Pokemon spoiled me. You know how the Pokemon centers are free.
Socialist healthcare in the
appreciate
Pokemon universe.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Although technically speaking, you know, if you lose a trainer battle, God willing, you do lose money.
Pokemon's too easy to lose at a trainer battle. Well, yeah, this is the lodging I was talking about, and yes, it is free, and we will sleep.
Oh, fair enough.
Papel's not dead.
Finally.